In the last two videos, we talked about general syntax and data structures in R. Now, having learned about the different data structures, let's go back and talk about general syntax. Specifically, let's talk about subsetting operations in R. The most basic way to subset data in R is to use index numbers within square brackets. Recall that earlier we had a character vector of 5 names stored in this object called name. So if we want to subset the data to only the 5th element, what we would do is to write the object name followed by the index number within square brackets. So in this case, the data is subset to only the 5th element. Recall that this represents the line number of the output in R. Here's another example. This time, instead of extracting data from a vector, we extract data from a data frame called team details that we created earlier. So let's say we're interested in the column age and we want the 4th element from that column. So we put the name of the data frame and we use the $sign to extract the column by its name. So in this case, the column age, and we're interested in the 4th element. So this is what the output would be. Now, what if we want to subset data directly from a data frame? Well, then we will have to include both the row index as well as the column index. Recall from an earlier video that for tabular 2-dimensional data, the first index always represents the rows and the second index always represents the columns, separated by a comma. So in this example, if we want the element in the 2nd row and 4th column, we would code it out like this. What if we want data from all columns in the data frame? Well, then we would exclude the column index. Finally, we can also subset data by excluding certain index numbers. Let's say we want data from the 4th column and all rows except the 2nd row. In this case, we will use the negative sign to exclude that 2nd row. We can also subset rows based on multiple indices. For example, we can do so based on a sequence of numbers 1 to 3. Recall that the colon represents a sequence of numbers from this number to that number. So we will get these first 3 rows. We can also use the concatenate function to subset specific index numbers. So for example, row 1 and row 3. And this would be the output. Finally, in the last part of this video, we will demonstrate subsetting in RStudio and also use the built-in dataset empty cars by running this particular line of code. What we want to do is to subset the data to only include cars with a fuel efficiency of at least 20 miles per gallon. This is the relevant column. And with more than 108 horsepower. And this is the column. Here's a hint. Do note that there's a logical operator here. At this point, you may want to pause this video and try it out yourself in your RStudio session. If not, we will proceed to demonstrate this in the next part of this video. This is the notebook we were working on earlier, but not to worry. We are not going to use any objects within the environment. Instead, let's use the data function, open brackets, empty cars. Run this line of code and you will notice that there's a new data frame called empty cars. Click on it and here each row represents a car model and each column represents a variable of interest. Recall that we are interested in miles per gallon and the horsepower. Miles per gallon, so we call it by its column name. Run this line and you will see a numeric vector. We want cars that have a miles per gallon larger or equals to 20. Run this line and you'll notice that this time it is a logical vector. This logical vector actually tells R which indices are to be subset. Empty cars, open brackets. We want to include rows based on this logical vector. And we want to include all columns, so we leave the column index blank. Run this line, and you'll notice that we now have 14 rows as compared to 32 rows. Let's try this same thing for horsepower. change it to HP, and 108. This time, we do not want to include the equal sign because we want cars with more than 108 horsepower. And that would give us 22 rows. So with these two criteria, we can actually combine them using this AND operator. And we will get the 5 rows that we see in our lecture slides. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, we will finally go into functions in R. Looking forward to seeing you there.